Welcome to PTSD 911 Presents. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm your host for this program. Thank you for joining us today. If you are new to our channel or to our podcast channel, welcome. We're so glad you joined us for this program. We bring to you these programs on a regular basis. These podcasts are designed for first responders and for those who support first responders. Personally, I am not a first responder. However, I'm a documentary filmmaker working on a documentary called PTSD 911. It's a story about first responders who are dealing with the traumas that they have experienced over their course of their career. And through this film, we hope to raise awareness about this issue. We hope to help first responders say it's okay to raise their hand and ask for help, and we hope to inspire change in agencies. That's our goal for this film, which will be completed later this year, and so be looking for that. If you have not seen our trailer, please go to ptsd911movie.com, check out the trailer, and I think you will be inspired by it. And if you feel so led to make a contribution in support of our film and in support of this channel, please do so on our homepage. That's ptsd911movie.com. Just click on the support button there, and we'll also have in the show notes on the podcast and on the YouTube channel, we'll have a link down below as well. Tonight we have a very special guest. Donna Michaels is a retired law enforcement officer, and she's also been in the military. We're so privileged to have her here to tell her story. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Donna Michaels. Well, Donna Michaels, welcome to the PTSD 911 Presents podcast. So appreciative that you were able to get on the show today. Thank you for joining us. And by the way, are you a district attorney, or what's the DA stand for?
No, DA are my initials. I go by Donna. Please call me Donna. All my friends call me Donna.
Okay.
But when I wrote my book, I was checking to see if there were any other authors with my name, and turns out there was. And she writes hot, steamy romance novels, and I have to put my disclaimer out there that I promise that's not me. I don't.
That's not what this show is about.
No,
right?
nor my book. So DA Michaels is what I went with. By all means, call me Donna.
Well, Donna, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. And we're really interested in hearing your story. And but you know what? Before we started rolling here, we were talking about some of the tragedies that have happened recently in Florida, actually, with two police suicides, and just what in the world's going on with our law enforcement, and that causes this kind of anguish and despair that people are taking their own lives.
Sadly, it's a combination of things. It's, I don't have to explain what's going on in our society and the hate, and the war on police. So it's, a lot of it is not having not feeling as though we have the support of the public or definitely the media. They always want to focus on the negative, and they never report the whole story. So we feel like no matter what, kind of we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. So there's that. And then, of course, what people don't understand is, we don't get called for people's birthdays or wedding anniversaries. We get called, people call 911 on the worst day of their lives, a lot of times. And so we go in and we see things that the human brain isn't, really meant to see over and over and over again. So with the first responder community, it's what they call complex PTSD, because we've been exposed to traumas repeatedly. And, I don't care what anybody says, we're human just like everybody else. We have loved ones, we have children, we have, people that we care about. And sometimes these calls involve children and involved, truly innocent people. And we think, we can't help but go there when the call is all said and done. Our mind goes to, well, what if this was my wife or husband? What if this was my child? And so then we become extremely hypervigilant and very overprotective. And often that can cause problems at home, right? Because, I know in my case, my daughter's like, Mom, come on. Even since I've retired, she's like, Mom, you're not a cop anymore. And I'm like, that doesn't mean the knowledge isn't still there. I still am very, very, untrusting. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, in my world, trust is earned.
Right.
I got to really know you to trust you, so, and I know I don't speak for myself. I mean, that's just a thing. And veterans are the same way, they see horrific things when they're overseas. But as Marcus Luttrell put it in an interview, the difference between, the military and first responders is when they leave foreign lands, they at least know that they left the bad guys behind in
Right.
their world,
In their
right?
world, right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. But for us, bad guys are everywhere. We
Be
don't know
around every
who's a,
corner.
yeah, we don't know who's good
Hmm.
and who's bad.
Hmm.
We have to assume the worst until we know otherwise. And
You
that
know, it
is
was interesting. A few years ago, when I was invited to do ride-alongs with our local sheriff's department and police department, and I did probably a dozen or so ride-alongs with them at various shifts, daytime, nighttime, all hours of the day and night. And it was just fascinating to experience that. And I got a little taste of, driving down the road with my wife, and I'm like, see that car there? Yeah, that's a bad guy. It just kind of had that. All of a sudden, I had my radar went up, and I'm not a law
yes.
enforcement, I'm not a cop, but just spending that time in
You
with them,
learn, you
you learn.
learn,
Yeah.
you do. I remember early on as a police officer, like, I nicknamed it red light bingo. And we would sit and we would just randomly run tags. I mean, we didn't, people like, oh, you targeted this car. No, we didn't. No, we're
Hmm.
really randomly just running tags. You
Hmm.
never know what you might find. You might find a stolen car, you might find a warrant, you might find, you know, I found a lady once that had been missing for 20 years.
Wow.
And her family thought she had given her up for dead. And she
Mm.
just had a really bad mental illness and just kind of disappeared on him. And she was a PhD, successful, and then
Hmm.
just for whatever the reason, just
Walked away.
yeah, just kind of snapped, had that breaking moment, and had been missing for years.
Hmm.
So, I mean, sometimes we find missing people. You just never
Yeah.
know.
Right.
But we're always running tags, and we run people too when we, hey,
Hmm.
can I see your license, whatever. And but it's scary when you sit at a red light and you run tags that you say, oh, that register owner's got a history of armed robbery. That one's got a history of trafficking drugs. We don't pull them over unless we have a reason to.
Sure.
But it's amazing when you look around you, how many people have extensive
Hmm.
criminal histories, and then you look in the car and you go, dude, kind of surprised. I didn't expect that. I saw a
Right.
drug deal go down the other day at a gas station, and the customers were a little old couple. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like,
Wow.
and I'm watching it because
Wow.
I'm retired. I'm in plain
Yeah,
clothes. I'm
yeah.
just sitting there. I'm in the car right next to him. The drug dealer leans in the window and he does the exchange. Now, he looked like a drug dealer, but the
Mhm.
customers didn't. It was a little
Wow.
old couple. I was like, I
Wow.
did not see that
Maybe they're
coming.
getting their prescriptions that way, Who knows?
Getting their glaucoma marijuana. I don't
Right,
know,
yeah.
but
Yeah. Well, so
you
this
really
didn't
don't know.
this you didn't come on this kind of vigilance and experience just overnight. So tell me a little
Mm-mm.
bit about your story, where, how you got into this business.
Well, I served in the Navy right out of high school and loved every minute of it. And unfortunately for me, in the early 90s, they were doing huge defense budget cutbacks, and I was caught up in the in part of that. And when my contract ended, I couldn't renew. I was in an area that was overmanned, and they were cutting. So I kind of got thrown, and I was overseas for my entire military career. So I hadn't been in the States in 4 years. And I just kind of was like, they were like, all right, thanks for your service. And thrown back to the States with no job leads. We didn't have the transition programs then that they have now, which I heard are doing wonderful things. Um, and when I was in the Navy, I worked with the special warfare community, Navy SEALs, in Panama, which were a huge part of the drug wars back then, the drug cartels fighting them, stopping drugs from coming into the country. So I was very, very passionate about being part of the greater good. And I saw, well, I didn't see, but I wrote reports that the guys saw about the horrific ways drug cartels will smuggle drugs into our country. They're absolutely, and I won't say it on air, but they're just monsterish, just
Hmm.
the highest level evil you could imagine.
Hmm.
Um, so I knew this just from writing the reports. And so when I got back to the States, I kind of floundered for 7 years. I got my real estate license and I did okay at it. I mean, I was successful, but it didn't satisfy me. It wasn't who I was. And then I met somebody in the law enforcement community. And much like yourself, I was invited to do a ride along because had been trying to talk me into becoming a cop. And I just laughed and said, no, not me. No way. I was the getaway driver for the guys at bar fights when I was in the Navy. I'm not, I'm not I wasn't a big fan of cops, to be honest. I had that, oh, they're just a bully with a badge and a gun and too much power. I mean, I had honestly that mentality, much like a lot of people do. And then he's like, no, I'm telling you, he goes, because I would talk about how much I missed the Navy and the camaraderie. That's what I really, really missed, was the camaraderie. And he convinced me to come do a ride along, and it sounded like fun. So I was like, okay, I'll come do it. And it was fun. I mean, I was an adrenaline junkie. So, I got out there and I ran the midnight shift, and we saw, and I write about it in my book, some of the calls that we had, and I was hooked. And I'm like, and I kept doing ride alongs to, and while I started applying and going through the process and all the background checks and, all that stuff. Finally got into the academy. And in 2000, I was sworn in. So, wasn't a cop very long, obviously, when 9/11 happened. And we won't get into that because that's another subject, but it definitely changed policing, and I think the whole country back then was on high alert.
Sure.
Everybody had a little case of who do you trust and who don't you trust, because of the way the terrorists got trained, here on our own soil.
Sure.
So, so it was, for 2000 was an interesting year to get into law enforcement, because a year later it dramatically changed. And then through the years, not only did we have to worry about, terrorism became a big deal for all of us, then it was also the everyday domestic type calls with child deaths and horrific car crashes. And I mean, I've had people die in my arms and knowing they were dying. But telling them, no, man, just hold on, but in my mind, knowing there was no hope.
Did you find that camaraderie that you had experienced in the Navy? Did you find that in law enforcement?
I want to say I did in the early years. Especially post 9/11. But again, the whole country suddenly supported first responders after 9/11 because of the towers, and we felt the love there for a while, and we definitely had each other's sixes. I did experience it for a little while, but then things changed. And I will tell you, in my opinion, and I'm pretty certain I'm for sure not alone, there is no job, no career that will ever rise to the level of the camaraderie of the United States Navy Naval Special Warfare Community, the SEALs.
Sure.
Those guys have hands down the tightest bond there is. And
for a good reason too, right?
Oh, heck yeah. They, even if they don't like each other, and occasionally, personalities,
sure.
Even if they don't like each other, they would still absolutely die for one another. And I like to believe we as cops and first responders, and firefighters, I would like to hope that we are the same way. I know I am, because that was inbred in me. You know what I mean? But I've met some over the years that I questioned, would you take a bullet for me? Would you? I don't know, but in the SEAL community and in the special operations community, and I don't want to leave out the other branches either, because any of those special operations communities, your brother will put down his life for you. There's no question about it. So, but it was more than just that. It was the laughter, we broke bread together. We didn't just work together. We broke bread together. We hung out together. There was family gatherings. There was holidays together. We were family. It was more than just a job. And in the first responder community, it's not like that. It's a job. You do your job and you go home. And I know very, very, very few that actually become friends outside the workplace and spend time together. There's a couple, but it's very uncommon. They go home and it's just like any other job, and they have their families and they do family things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's my understanding that in the old days that cops' families hung out together, firefighter families hung out together outside the workplace. And believe it or not, that in and of itself is therapeutic. Sure. It is cathartic, because while the wives are talking, right, the children are playing, the brothers and the sisters are over here talking about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
because they're telling each other things they can't tell their spouses
Mm-hmm.
because they like we protect our loved ones. We don't want them to know what we've seen and done. Um, because we don't want that to bother or stress them out. So we
Mm-hmm.
tend to protect them. So in the old days where, cops would get together, you see in the movies, oh, they have their own bar that they hang out with, or, they all that's not reality, at least not here in the South. I mean, I think it used to be in the North, but from
Mm-hmm.
what I've talked to
Mm-hmm.
friends that work in up north where that used to be a thing, it's not a thing anymore either.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be allowed to take dinner breaks together and go into restaurants and even on duty, we work
Mm-hmm.
12-hour shifts when you're on the road. You got to eat, right?
Right. Sure.
And yeah, and we would, we get 30 minutes. And if something happens, you leave your meal and you go. That's the way it
Mm-hmm.
is. So a lot of times you're rolling the dice on, am I going to do drive through or am I going to actually try to sit down and have a decent meal,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but we're not even allowed to do that anymore. We're not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to even meet for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's manpower, some of it's literally citizen complaints. This isn't what my tax dollars are paying for. Why am I paying for them to sit in, XYZ restaurant and on my dime? And
Mm-hmm.
sadly, instead of leadership stepping up and saying, hey, listen, they work 12-hour shifts,
Right.
do you get a lunch break during your workday? Well, why
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't they? It's
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, but that's what's happened over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where we are today.
So,
And
in your experience as from your Navy experience and also primarily from your law enforcement, where did things go sideways
South
for you?
for me, or
Yeah,
in general for
for
me.
you.
Okay. 2017. Uh, by 2017, I'd been a cop 17 years, and I had responded to countless traumatic calls, many child deaths. I know I work for a big agency, so a densely populated area. So a lot happened, and every time I had a traumatic call, I just kind of like put it in the box and said, this is part of it. And then after a while, you kind of get numb to it. You just know like, hey, this is the job, and it sucks. And the ones that would really bother me, I would call my mom, because she spent her career at the medical examiner's office, dealing with families who had, lost loved ones. So she had some experience dealing with family members who had experienced trauma. So I felt like my mom, for me, was a good outlet and understood. So would call my mom and, and cry and I would feel better afterwards. But then as the years went by, I for some reason, well, she was getting older um, I just quit talking about it. I don't know why. I just did. And then 17 hit, and I was having a difficult year. I had finally allowed someone into my life romantically. I had been shut off for decades. And I met a guy, and I didn't vet him very good, and it turned out to be a disaster. I laugh now because I'm fine now, but at the time it was very stressful. And then so I was going through all that. I broke it off with him, but he just wasn't like taking no for an answer, and I had to get a restraining order. And so I was going through just a lot of crap at the time. And then I had a really awful supervisor who knew I was going through struggles, and instead of offering any support, um, or checking on me like he was actually told to do. I found out later by a superior because somebody recognized that I wasn't doing so good. They told him to check on me, and he never did. Instead, he held it over my head and made it sound like I was under an investigation that I was never even under. He was just a bully, is what he was. Um, and then, so I was dealing with a bad supervisor, personal problems. And then in late May, my German Shepherd passed away,
Mhm.
which was, I am a passionate, I'm a dog lover, I'm an animal lover, but I am passionate about German Shepherds. And he was, very, very special to me. And I had to make the difficult decision to put him down because he was suffering, and I'm of the belief that's selfish. So I had to make that difficult situation during a difficult time. Then my mom went into ICU a few days later because her health was
Mhm.
deteriorating, pretty rough, pretty rapidly at the time. And then a matter of like 3 days later, this all happened in a span of like a week.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was just like I got punched in the face. And before I could stand up again, I got punched in the face again. And before I could stand up again, I got punched in the face again. So that resiliency that I always had wasn't there because I didn't have time to get up before I hit again. That's in the best analogy I can offer. So so on
and
June,
that's in addition to all the other stresses
crap
that you
that's
had with
already
work and
yeah, and that's the thing. And I describe it to people like it's like this little black box that we put in the back shelf of our brain, and we put a padlock on it, and it only opens when we got to stuff another one in there, and then we lock it before the other ones get out. So on June 1st 2017, I responded to a call that was extremely traumatic involving the death of a child. And for me, that call was the C4 or dynamite that someone attached to my little black box. And instead of being able to open it and stuff it in, it blew it up. And suddenly, all of my traumas from over the years, all the way back to when I was in the military, I had one trauma in the military. That was a significant trauma, but I was able to manage it for years until all of a sudden the box was full and then it blew up. So all of these memories came out, and I call them, they were like demons, and I could hear the mother's screams. I could hear the nightmares. I was reliving the traumas. So it got to the point where I was afraid to go to sleep because I was afraid of the nightmares. And so now I was sleep deprived. Right. And for me, I don't do good when I'm sleep deprived. I get really like, I'm a mess. So, the exhaustion broke me down to the point where I started crying all the time. And this didn't happen instantly. The trauma happened on June 1st. About a week later is when the crying started, and it went on for weeks. And I was going to work. I was canceling my backups. I didn't want anybody to see me the way I was because it was really obvious something was wrong. I had stopped taking phone calls, wasn't talking to anybody. I was sending my daughter off to different friends' house just so she wouldn't see me at home, being the hot mess that I was. And all I did was cry. And finally, at some point, I said, I can't keep doing this. So I picked up the phone and I called a sergeant at the agency who was on our SISM team. And I just was sobbing. And I told her that call that we went to, I'm like, I don't know why, but this one's really bothering me. And I can't get past it. I don't understand why I can't get past it. I've always been able to get past them before. And she's like, and I trusted her because she had been through an extreme traumatic call in her career, and I'd known her for years, and I trusted her, so I felt comfortable calling her. And she told me, "We'll go to the urgent care and tell the doctor what's going on, and he can give you something to help you calm down." And I'm like, "Okay." And she says, and that was it, and that's what I did, and it was, critical incident stress management, SISM as we call it, is all considered confidential. So she was mandated to keep that to herself. So I went, and the doctor did exactly what she said he would do. And he wrote me a prescription for Xanax. And that was it. No follow-up, no nothing. So I started taking Xanax. And then all that did was help me stop crying. But I was still...
it doesn't really solve the issue that's behind the crying, right?
Exactly. Right. And so then the depression hit, and then the bad thoughts kicked in. Then the demons kicked in. You're a failure as a mother. Your daughter deserves better than this. You're going to screw up at work and you're going to get fired. They're going to find out. And then how embarrassing and shameful would that be? You've been doing this 17 years. You can't throw it away now. So I would not ask for help because I was convinced that they would take my gun and badge. I knew. And I was having suicidal thoughts. I was raised Catholic. I was one of those people that would respond to suicide calls or hear about a suicide and be like, what a coward. Why take the easy way out? I really, really was adamantly, again, I had no sympathy, Sadly, I had no sympathy for people who committed suicide. I felt bad for their families, but not for them. I'm like, that's such a cowardly way to go. What a, just really, and I was raised Catholic. I believe that if you commit suicide, it's one way ticket to hell. I mean, I truly, believe that. And all of a sudden I was in so much pain that hell seemed better than what I was going through. And I even saying that today, I can't comprehend it. But at the time, that's where I was. But as a CIT officer and knowing the system, I thought if I tell anybody what I've got going on, they're gonna take me off to the mental ward. I'm done. I'm done. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, if I did it and I made it look like an accident, then my daughter would get the benefits. And then, I've already got a trust and a will in place in case anything ever happened to me anyway on duty. I had all my ducks in a row already. All I had to do was figure out how to do it, make it look like an accident. Problem solved. So I figured it out. And
how long from the time of the incident till you were thinking these thoughts? How
6
long
weeks.
was that? Wow.
6 weeks. Yep. And I put my daughter on an airplane and I sent her to family out of town because I didn't want her to be here when I did it. I say family, they're just really, really close friends. But and my mom was not in a place where she could care for her. So that wasn't an option. So I put her on a plane. It was summertime. I made it look like a summer vacation. I said, hey, go hang out with, your aunt and uncle on the farm. And because she loved the farm. And then I started figuring it out. I had a plan and I called my best friend, my best military friend. And I talk about him a lot in the book. He is a very important person in my life. And I called him expecting to leave a voicemail because he was the worst at answering his phone. But I guess the good Lord above had other plans for me because he did answer his phone that day, and that was unusual. So it actually caught me off guard when he answered, because I was all prepared for a voicemail, and I was going to make my goodbye, and he answered, and I was kind of taken back and just burst into tears and was crying so hysterically that he couldn't even understand what I was saying. And he was like, whoa, slow down. What's going on? And he already knew because we had been talking. He already knew I was in a bad place. He didn't know I was in that bad of a place. And I said the words, I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, I want to die. I can't do this anymore. I can't take it. And he's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, he says, look, he said, I know what you're going through. He goes, there's plenty of us that you know and respect that have been right where you are right now. He goes, I promise you there is help. He goes, but you got to go get it. I said, I can't. If I ask for help, they're going to take away my gun. They're going to take away my badge. My career is over. I can't. And he goes, yes, you can. He goes, you can do it on the down low. He goes, you can do it without telling them. You do it on your own. He goes, even if you have to pay for it. And I'm like, okay. So he kind of explained a few things to me, and that's exactly. And then I started finding out how many first responders do that. It's quite common that they will go and pay out of their own pockets just so their agency won't know.
And it's as a civilian, that just really hurts, just to know that there are people who, are taking care of our communities, who are suffering like that, and who are now, paying for out of pocket because they're afraid of what's going to happen.
The repercussions.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they'll act, the leaderships will act like, oh no, we got you, we'll take care of this.
But they don't.
Behind your back, they're finding a reason to write you up. They're finding a reason to, they're starting a paper trail. Until you do one dumb thing because of your problem. Because we get really forgetful. We do make mistakes. We're human, we're also all getting older, So, then it's just one dumb mistake.
Yeah.
And they nail you. And that's it. And they've got their paper trail, And
that's exactly what we're seeing. I don't want to give away our film or documentary, but that's exactly the story we're telling in our documentary of what's happening with some folks in our film.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
It's true.
It's terrible.
And I wish people knew how common it was.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was lucky that I had close veteran friends. These, to this day, I've been out of the military for 30 years.
Mm.
To this day, I hear and associate and speak with my veteran brothers way more than I do anybody I was a cop with for 20 years.
Wow.
Even since my retirement, I retired 6 months ago. And only person I hear from is my former sergeant, my sergeant when I retired. But by the way, he's a veteran.
Mm.
So
So he has that experience, that lived
he gets it.
experience from the
He
past.
gets it.
Yeah.
And he's a huge mental health advocate. And he is very supportive of everything I'm doing. So I best supervisor I ever had. And I was blessed that I had him at the end of my career because um, I got to go out on a high note. And I'm very happy about that rather than doing something dumb and getting in trouble and then leaving, under the cloud of shame or whatever.
Mhm.
So um,
And
anyway, so
and
that's it. That's what happened.
and
And
so
so
how
my
did you what was that process like of getting help, and what was your journey to wellness like?
it was it was I'm going to be honest with you, some of it I don't remember.
Mhm.
Okay? It was a
Mhm.
difficult time, but I know that I was seeing a counselor on out of my own pocket, and then it didn't last long because he just didn't get it.
Mm.
He
He
didn't.
wasn't one of these culturally competent
No,
counselors. I mean, that understood the law enforcement community, perhaps?
he it was almost like a Debbie Downer.
Mm.
Like I didn't feel the support that I needed. I didn't
Mhm.
feel the optimism that I needed.
Mm.
I needed hope. That's what I
Sure.
needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't find it there. Does that make sense?
Sure. Mhm.
So I quit going.
Mhm.
And it was October, a few months later, that I had well one of my brothers, because my German Shepherd had died, knew I was struggling, and he had a 7-month-old German Shepherd puppy that he had kept from himself that he'd bred. And he said, I guess for whatever the reason, him and his wife discussed it, and German Shepherds in one house was too many with 4 kids. So he called
That's a
me
house
from,
full.
yeah, it was. So he calls me from like way upstate New York, and he says, hey, I got this dog, and I won't give him up to anybody that I won't give him to just anybody. I need him to have a good home, and I know you're the person. He goes, and besides, I think you need him too. And I'm like, are you crazy? No, I can't take that on. I was not looking.
Mhm.
I'm like, no, I'm not even done mourning my Max, my other dog. And he's like, all right. He goes, I'm just letting you know. He goes, you're the only one getting this offer. He
Mm.
goes, so change your mind, let me know. So I talked to a couple people, and they're like, are you stupid? Go get that dog. That's exactly what you need. So, I was so lost that I almost was taking any advice given to me because I just
Mm.
really wanted to feel better.
Mhm.
So, and I was on meds at this point. I went to my gynecologist because I thought, well, maybe it's hormonal.
Mhm. Right.
Maybe it's menopause. I was 47. So I'm like, well, maybe it's menopause. Something's wrong with me because I've never been through this before and this isn't normal. So
Right.
my GYN was like, it's not your hormones, but I'll run the test just to make you
Mhm.
happy, but I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure this is clinical depression. And he put me on an antidepressant, which did help. I will
Mhm.
admit,
Mhm.
it made me go from getting out of bed in the morning. Well, it made me go from not wanting to get out of bed in the morning because all I wanted to do was cry
Mhm.
to getting out of bed in the morning and being able to have conversation with people. And
Mhm.
that sounds so simple, but
Mhm.
believe it or not, for me, that was a big turning point. Just getting out of bed and going and being willing to have a
Mhm.
conversation with someone was a big accomplishment. So I'm not anti meds,
Sure.
but I'm anti long term meds.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that they're
The meds gave you
wonderful.
enough clarity to be able to work on yourself and
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. But I'm all about let's get to the root of the problem because
Sure.
once you fix the root of the problem, or then you can get off the meds right
Yeah.
later.
Yep.
So, but you need them to get you going.
Yeah.
So for me, that was what my gynecologist put me on the meds. So I was doing that, and then still not seeking mental health help because didn't want
Mhm.
to go there. And then because I didn't like the first one, and you know how it goes. I didn't like them. They don't get it.
They're all like that then.
They're all the same, right? Yeah. So, so in October, I heard about a program that a county, not my county, a different county, was offering called Paws and Stripes. And it's where you could get your dog certified as a therapy dog, law enforcement therapy dog. And I learned about it and I thought, this is awesome, and and for those that don't know what therapy dogs do, we in law enforcement use them to interview victims of violent crimes, especially children, or domestic violence, or even armed robberies. I mean, any kind of really traumatic event. And the dogs are there to calm the victim while they tell their story. There's been major scientific proof that what happens in the brain and the chemicals in the brain that calm us naturally, are released when we interact with a dog, hence the term man's best friend, right? So I was told, my dog was such an amazing dog. He'd be a good therapy dog, especially to first responders because he was a German Shepherd. And I was learning about more and more agencies getting therapy dogs for their own people, the ones that are investigating the sex crimes and the homicides, they see too much.
Right.
So they have dogs within their own agencies that are part of the unit. And they found that retention increased. They found all these wonderful benefits. And I was like, yeah, heck yeah. I'm all this is my new mission. This is what I'm going to do. Right. And that's what I needed. I needed a mission. So long story short, I go to this class and, within the first day by lunchtime, my dog flunked out and was kicked. Well, you got to understand, at this point, he was a 9-month-old puppy with absolutely zero formal training. And he was a hot mess, and he was a mama's boy, and all he kept doing was jumping in my lap, and if another dog made eye contact with him, then he would show his ass, pardon my French. And it was just like, he was incorrigible, straight up incorrigible. So the guy in charge of the class at lunchtime pulls me, and I already knew it wasn't going well. He pulls me to the side at lunch and he goes, look, we don't think your dog's quite cut out for this. Do you have another dog? And I did. I had my daughter's, the time 7-year-old Lhasa Apso. I'm like, yeah, my daughter's dog. She's cute, but she's dumb as shit. I not so sure about her. And he goes, it doesn't take brains. It takes sweetness and kindness and tenderness. And if she's a friendly dog, that's what we need. A calm, chill, friendly dog. A 9-month-old German Shepherd puppy is the opposite of all of those things.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yep.
Especially with no training.
Right.
So so Jesse, who was the guy in charge of the program, and I can put his name out there. His name is now Dr. Jesse Holton, PhD. He runs a retreat for first responders and veterans in Montana called T6. I cannot say enough good things about Jesse. He is an angel on earth. So at the time, though, he was an instructor at this. He started this program actually, and Jesse takes me to the side at lunchtime, and he read me and my dog like that. Like, this man has known me merely hours, and he pulled me to the side at lunch and he goes, "Got a question for you." And I said, "Okay." And he goes, "You said you served in the military." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Did something happen there?" And I just lost it. I just started bawling. I had never spoken of what happened in the military ever to anybody, not even the psychologist I've been seeing. I was only talking about work-related stuff. But Jesse picked up on it. And the class, and I don't want to give too much up of my book, but the class was the part that morning was showing how dogs help victims of sexual assault. So I'm watching interviews of victims of sexual assault. You can probably make the connection there, right? And I didn't realize it, but my anxiety, because I guess over the years, I just got used to it. My anxiety was fired up. And what my dog was doing, he's more in tune to me. That's why they said he wasn't meant to be a therapy dog. He was responding to me. Yeah. They're like, he's not a good therapy dog because he's in tune to you. He doesn't care about anybody else. Some dogs have the temperament to be service dogs, and some dogs have the temperament to be therapy dogs. Dogs are like people. They all have their own personalities, right? So they're like, your dog is in tune to you. And when your anxiety goes up, he's trying to distract you. He's actually trying to comfort you. You're just not letting him. All you're doing is correcting him. And he doesn't understand because he's trying to help you. And I was like, what do you, because I haven't told anybody.
Sure.
So long story short, Jesse gave me the rest of the day off and sent me to the VA. And I went to the VA, convinced that there was nothing they were going to do for me because I had never reported the incident. I'd never gotten, I had never gotten rated. I had never made a claim. I'd never walked in a VA in my life. And I walked in and I'm supposed to tell them about this trauma that happened 27 years ago and expect them to believe me, right? Like, that's not going to happen. Nobody believes it. Everybody always says the same thing. Oh, why'd they wait so many years to report it? Dude, it's a difficult thing to talk about. Yeah. We try really hard to pretend it never happened. So we don't report, right? Until one day it just catches up to us. So anyway, so I go in there and I'm standing there and I'm crying. And this woman's going, ma'am, I can't help you if you don't tell me what you need. And then, and I couldn't say it. But then there was a banner over her head and it said MST and there was a hotline number. And I just pointed at it. And that's what he told Jesse knew about this program. So that's why he sent me there. And so I pointed at it and she goes, have a seat. I'll be right back. And within 20 minutes, I was in a psychologist's office and they signed me up for to be a patient under a hardship program while I went through the claims process, while I filed for benefits and services and stuff like that. So that took 3 years.
Wow.
But during the 3 years that it took me to get my benefits and get rated, I was getting help from the VA all along. So that's how I was able to get help on the down low because it was the VA, which had nothing to do with
your law enforcement
agency. Yeah. And I didn't have to pay for it. And that was the best part. I didn't have to pay for it. Yeah. And it was with people who were trained to deal with these type of traumas, whether it was combat trauma, military sexual trauma, or whatever. So I was working with psychologists who were trained for this. And I was blessed that the ones that I got, now I know I can't speak for everybody because I've heard horror stories about other VAs, but I can say that the one I was lucky enough to go to was amazing. So it helped me. And then about 2 years, no, it was about a year and a half later, they passed a law in Florida for PTSD for first responders.
Right.
And it was a workman's comp claim. So it wasn't until 2019 that I actually reported it to my agency that I had been getting treatment on my own since 17. And here I am. But
even with a law like that, there's still that stigma of being raising your hand and saying it's me,
I was at that point when I reported it. I reported it because I had an opportunity to get treatment in Texas through Boot Campaign, who is also another amazing organization that was started by Morgan Luttrell, Marcus Luttrell's brother. Marcus runs Lone Survivor Foundation, which is wonderful. And then Marcus runs or founded Boot Campaign. Both organizations are amazing. They just kind of do slightly different things. So Boot Campaign was paying for me to go to Texas to get treatment and to get testing, but I needed time off work to go. So in order to get the time off work to go to Texas, I had to tell them why I wanted so much time off. And they shot me down and they said, no. I'm like, but it's free. You don't have to pay a thing. It's all covered. And they wouldn't pay for me to take the time off to go. Wow. So they told me I could take my vacation time, but it was 7 weeks. And I'm like, I don't have 7 weeks of vacation. At this point, I knew my VA claim was coming along. I knew I was going to be retiring as soon as my claim was officially approved. And I spoke to a couple experts and they said, if they fire you because of anything you do due to PTSD, you can sue the shit out of them. And I kind of like went into it with that attitude, like, well, if they screw me, then I'll just screw them back. You know what I mean? So I'll just leave it there.
What has happened since then to get you on this path of now helping others?
Okay. Thanks for asking. Yeah. Cause I see a squirrel and I go, I think we all do it. So during therapy at the VA, I had to journal. And the purpose of the journaling is I had suppressed so many memories and I was frustrated because some of the memories were good memories. And I got frustrated because I'm like, I know why I suppressed the bad ones, but why can't I remember the good ones? And I said, I want to enjoy the laughter. I want to enjoy because we have get-togethers, we have our reunions, our military friends. And I said, I don't remember these hilarious stories, So I told the counselor about it. She said, and we were doing what's called cognitive processing therapy, CPT. And I had to journal several times. And I think the one that helped me the most was when I journaled through my five senses. What do I remember smelling, seeing, hearing, etc. That actually helped me a lot with finding what my triggers were, because I had no, at that point I would just snap and didn't know why. And people were like, dude, wasn't that a little over the top? Why so extreme? And I would get triggered and not know why. So anyway, I was journaling, and I found it to be so cathartic and so therapeutic that I found myself, once I started, I couldn't stop. So then I started on my own, at home, saying, well, I want to remember this and I want to remember that, things from my childhood, just all throughout my life. And I had a lot of whys in my head, well, why did this happen? Why did that happen? So I started journaling and looking for the answers to my whys. And when it was all said and done, I let the same best friend that saved my life, and spent that 8 hours on the phone with me that day, I sent it to him. And I was sending it to him in pieces, not all at once. And he just kept going, keep going. This is really good stuff. Keep going, keep going. So I finished it until present day. And then he's like, you need to share this. I'm like, are you insane? I'm like, I'm like, talk about letting the skeletons out of the closet, And he's like, no, I'm telling you. He goes, everybody's got skeletons. Everybody's got stories. He goes, but this is good. He goes, because it's entertaining. He goes, it's got funny stuff in it. It's got the serious stuff in it. He goes, people are going to be able to relate to this, And I'm like, I sat on it for a while and I thought about it. And then somebody I knew committed suicide. It was a veteran and a Marine that I knew locally. And I was the last person he talked to before he committed suicide.
Wow.
And I didn't know that. I had gone out of town. And when I got back, I got a text message from his phone, and it was his brother asking me, hey, can I talk to you about your last conversation with my brother? And that's how I found out. And I really beat myself up over that one, because I'm like, did I miss something? Is there something I could have said? Is there something I could have done? He seemed fine when I talked to him. There was not an inkling that he was about to kill himself. And then his brother filled in the blanks for me as to what happened. Like, best we can figure on the timeline is like literally right after I spoke to him, something really bad in his life happened. And that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for him. And he was dead within a week.
Wow.
So I thought about it, and I thought about what my friend told me about sharing my story. And I said, if putting myself out there stops one person from taking their lives and not feeling alone, like we often, most of the time do, because we're afraid to share, then, screw it. I'll do it. And I got, I went through it, and I wrote the ending to it, because I didn't have an ending. It was just a journal. And so I wrote the ending, and then, next thing I know, and it was funny because right at the beginning of COVID, I got hurt on the job with a shoulder injury. So I was laid up at home waiting for shoulder surgery because I couldn't do anything. And I sat with a laptop in my lap, and I found an editor, and I published my book while I was out on a work injury, and I retired this past summer, and that's what I do now. So my book is doing well. I'm
What's
very,
the title
very
of your book?
Courageously Broken. Here it is right here. So.
Awesome.
Yep. So Courageously Broken. My foreword is written by Don Mann. He is a New York Times bestselling author, retired from Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or commonly known as SEAL Team 6. And I was fortunate to work with Don when we were in Panama many, many years ago. And I called Don and I said, hey, I think I wrote a book. And I said, how do I go from Google Docs to an actual book? Like, what do I do now? And he coached me through the process of making it come to fruition. And he wrote my foreword, which I was, thrilled about. And so Don wrote my foreword. My old skipper, who was actually in the Pentagon on 9/11, he endorsed it. He wrote a write-up on the back of it, and we're still, close today. See each other at least once a year at a reunion. And so yeah, it's been an amazing, and it's gotten endorsement from former retired first responder leaders. And one of them wrote an endorsement on the cover as well. And I was very happy because she's not only a law enforcement leader, she's also a military spouse. So
Hmm.
she got it
Hmm.
from both angles.
Both. Yeah.
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 So yeah, it's been the feedback I get from first responders who are so afraid of coming out. Privately, I get
Hmm.
messages daily, and it's thank you. Now I know what to do. Now
What does it do for your mind to know that your story's going out there and other people are being helped by that story? What does it do for you?
Oh, it's there's no dollar figure in the world that you can put on how amazing it makes me feel. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, I'm not into this to get rich. I just try not to go poor, but but no, it makes me. And I told Marcus and Morgan this during our interview. I'm like, it literally makes me feel like I didn't go through all the shit in my life for nothing.
Mm,
It makes me feel like I can do something good with all of the bad,
mhm,
and to be able to pay it forward and help people not go down the rabbit hole I went down, or sadly so many others do, but and don't come out of it like I have. Um and I know other people that have come through it really, really good too. I'm not alone. There's
mhm,
there's there's plenty of people who have overcome PTSD, and I like me. There's lots of debate on this. I don't believe there's a cure to PTSD. I still get
mm,
triggered to this day,
mhm,
but you can learn to manage it. So just knowing your triggers for me was huge, because now I know what triggers me. If I get triggered, I get over it quicker, because it's like,
mhm,
all right, I just got triggered. Let me go. Give me a minute. Let me go
mhm.
decompress. Um, TSA still triggers the shit out of me. I can't seem to get over that one. So my therapist is like, just take a Xanax before you go through TSA. And I do. That's the only way I know how. I go through TSA and going, okay, whatever.
Well, I will have to connect you to a guest I had on the show recently who would disagree with you.
Okay.
And I just
And
need to
that's
get
all
you
right.
guys together because he's also in Florida. And so there may be something there that you can get from him. And
Yeah. Some people are calling it, I think it's PTSR, PTSD, no, post traumatic stress recovery, or
okay,
PTS.
yeah, yeah.
I think
I've
they
heard
put a
that.
name on it or something. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it, and it's
Hmm.
it's it's a matter of opinion. I think it's a matter of personal experience.
Hmm.
We're all going to come at it with a different perception. Uh, you know, I think it, and a lot of times it might depend on, well, was it a combat experience where it was one horrible experience that caused
Hmm.
it, or was it complex like we have where
Right.
it's
Where
years of
it's
it? You know what I
cumulative.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Accumulative, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there is a one right answer.
Yeah.
I just
And different things work for different people. I know I've heard people who, swear by EMDR and other people says didn't work for me,
I've
and
heard the
so
same
it's just
thing.
a big variety of things like that. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yep. And then
very
like
good.
writing for me was huge. And then other people go, I sit down and I just don't know where to start. I'm like,
Mm,
well, maybe, okay, maybe writing's not your thing. And then I've
mhm,
got a friend and he does a podcast,
mhm,
you know, and he's like, I don't care if I make it big. I don't care if I have 1 million followers. He goes, just talking to people
mhm.
about this subject and hearing other people's experiences, for him, that's
It's
his
therapy for him.
therapy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what he has found that
Mhm,
helps him. So it's different strokes for different folks.
yeah. So, where can people find you? Where can they find your book?
Okay, well, if they go to my website, which is courageously broken.com, they will find the book link, which will take them to Amazon. My books are purchased off Amazon. Any events I have coming up, we will post. Right now, our website is being currently updated, to get taking all the holiday stuff off, and
Mhm,
getting into 2022. We are launching. I've just launched a new project called Heroes United to Heal. We are building the page as we speak, and it's there. You just gotta click on HU2H, and it'll show you like a write up that I did at 2 o'clock this morning, actually, and then a menu. And this is what's important. There is a menu of a variety of nonprofit organizations that are doing incredible things for veterans. I've got Boot Campaign on there. I've got Jesse's organization retreat up in Montana on there, Sacred Mountain Retreat, who I'm going this spring, but I've know several people have already gone and have said nothing but amazing things about it. So what I'm doing is I'm collecting information about these small nonprofits that don't have deep marketing, pockets or celebrity endorsements, but who are doing amazing work. And I'm putting them on my website and telling people that here is United to Heal, HU2H, is a one-stop shop webpage that you can go to, read about every organization, find out what will work for you. Some of them do equine therapy. Some of them provide service dogs, PTSD service dogs. Some of them are hunting retreats, outdoor retreats. There's something should be something for everyone.
So you want to kind of be a clearinghouse for all these organizations that work that are, and do you, and so how do you vet them to know that, I mean, there's some shady characters in all industries out there.
Oh,
so how do you know that that's a shady?
For sure. Either I've gone myself or I know people that I trust immensely who have gone.
Sure.
Sacred Mountain is one of their ambassadors I served with in the military. He's a retired Master Chief from SEAL Team 6 as well. It's not Don Man, it's a different one. But I mean, I would trust my life with this guy. And if he's an ambassador and he says it's good, and then a friend of mine went and he came back saying, holy crap, it changed his life. I can confidently vet that one, even though I haven't yet gone myself, just because of the people that have come back that tell me about it, who know about it.
Sure. Yep.
So,
I have a couple you can probably add to your list as well. So we can talk about that off air.
Okay.
And
So, and I'm also setting big goals. I'm hoping, I'm building a team right now. If any of your listeners can help me, we talked about this the other day. My goal for the year is to organize a big benefit concert to raise money for these nonprofit organizations and to help them because they don't have the deep pockets, right?
Sure.
And we're hoping to have a benefit concert in hopefully February 2023, but something like this takes a while to plan. So, we're building our team now. And if anybody out there has experience with this and, knows Toby Keith, love to have him as a headliner.
I've interviewed him one time. I've met him. I've interviewed him.
I've seen him in concert numerous times. He is incredible. I know people who've met him who say he's everything he seems to be. And I'm a huge fan, but I know he's passionate about supporting our military and our first responders. And I would be so honored if he would, join our team and be a headliner.
See if I can. I have a guy that I know who knows him, so I'll maybe reach out.
That would be great.
There's a connection.
See, that's what I'm saying. You never know. And that's the funny thing about this journey I'm on. For every door that opens, I feel like 3 more behind it open. Yeah. And they're all going in positive directions.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I know I'm onto something good.
Yeah.
I just know it. So.
Well, we'll leave it at that. You're onto something good. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Donna, and for sharing your story with the world through your book. And I encourage all of our listeners to get out there and to buy the book and to check it out. So Donna, thank you for being here and for being a part of this program. I appreciate it very much.
I appreciate it. It was my honor.
Hey, thanks so much for sticking around and listening to or watching this program. I really appreciate it. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. That way you get informed about the next episode that's coming up. And be sure to tune in for more interesting conversations that we have on PTSD 911 Presents. And if you haven't made a contribution yet, please do so. I encourage you to do that on our website, ptsd911movie.com, or just click on the show notes. There's a link there where you can make a contribution. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Take care, and I'll talk to you again soon.